It's been a really rough winter here, with gale after gale battering the coastline. Between the Atlantic storms, guillemots and razorbills come and go to stack rocks. Perhaps already jostling for the best nest sites come spring. These birds really do live life on the edge. Spending most of the year out at sea feeding, they only come ashore to breed on these steep cliff edges. Despite the raging tempest outside, ecologists make their annual visit deep inside a sea cave to monitor a population of mammals so rare they need to be counted every year. Incredibly, horseshoe bats are able to sleep through these storms. They spend most of the winter in a deep sleep, hidden away in caves along this coastline. Here, the temperature in winter is constantly cool. Perfect for hibernation. Meanwhile, a brief gap in the storms gives the shepherds on the land above a chance to scan their ewes for this year's lambs. Traditionally, sheep are brought down from the Preseli Hills to graze this land in winter and spring. This custom benefits not only the welfare of the sheep, but also maintains a traditional landscape, rich in wildlife.
Dechreuodd y cysylltiad â bugeiliad y Preseli a Castell Martin ar ôl gaeaf ym byd 1947. Oedd y cynlledion ar y tir uchel yn fawr iawn. Ar y pryd, yn y dechrau'r 50au, oedd y swyddog yn gweithio gyda'r weinyddiaeth amaeth W.H. Jones, a fe roiodd bêl fel petai i gychwyn i rowlo o symud y defyd o'r tir uchel dros y gaea lawr i'r tir uchel, a dod nôl â nhw i'r ardal y mynyddau yn ystod y Gwanwyn a'r Haf. Felly ymarfer yr hen draddodiad o Hafod a Henre. Erbyn dechrau mis Rhagfyr bob blwyddyn, mae bron i 10,000 o ddefed wedi symud lawr i de'r sir, ond yn ystod y tymor pori, mae rhai yn dod adre'n gynnar, enwedig ar ôl sganio. Os oes dafad yn cario efaill, maen nhw'n dod nôl i'r cartrefi gwreiddiol, lle mae yna gropau gwyrdd fel swês ac yn y blaen yn ei derbyn nhw. Ar y llaw arall, mae'r tir mynyddig yn cael honni yn gynnar yn y Gwanwyn i dyddu nôl, a does ddim defyd yn cael ei troi mas wedyn is boi yn hwyrach yn y Gwanwyn a'n gynharach yn yr Haf.
This distinctive limestone coastal platform in South Pembrokeshire is known as Castle Martin. Here are 6,000 acres of rugged coastline, rich farmland, and it's packed with wildlife. It's also the top live firing range in the UK.
Castle Martin Range Complex has been here since 1939. It was compulsory purchased by the government back then. It was taken over as the best place in the country for tank firing because the complex is in excess of 6,500 acres of real estate here, and we can fire on the land and out to sea, which makes it incredibly safe. We can practice everything from a single tank firing at a static target up to a complete squadron of tanks moving all together against an array of static and moving targets. It's a linear range, so the safe area is the sea. It gives us that opportunity to move down range 2 to 3, 4 kilometres, practice our skills and drills before they disappear on operations overseas in whatever country they need to go to. We have a very tight-knit group, so whenever the range is closed, we, in conjunction with the recreational access groups and the conservation groups, we open the range for access to recreational activities. Range East is open as soon as we finish firing every day and all weekend, but Range West is strictly controlled and they have to be booked on. We open up to climbers, to walkers, to fishermen and to surfers, so we do open as much as we possibly can to the public.
The Castlemartin Range is an incredibly valuable relic of the past, which has avoided the advances of intensive agriculture and development. Despite the fact that it's an important and very busy tank range, the archaeological and historical heritage and fascinating geology survives largely intact. And wildlife thrives here. Spring at last. Winter finally releases its grip. It felt like it was never going to arrive. As the sun rises, male adders sluggishly emerge from hibernation, cleverly camouflaged amongst the gorse and heather, warming themselves up ready for mating. Lizards also emerge and take advantage of the warming sun. The days are lengthening. Early spring is a time of frantic activity on the range. Jackdaws and chough thrive alongside each other on these exposed sea cliffs. The chough, easily identified by its red beak and legs, piercing call, and acrobatic aerial displays, can be spotted all along this stretch of coast. This rare bird has established a stronghold here in Pembrokeshire. Deep cracks in the sea cliffs provide the perfect home, safe from predators, while the short grazed cliff tops provide plenty of grubs and insects to feed on. Choughs live intimate lives with their partners and usually breed for life. It's the time of year for building nests. Sheep's wool makes the perfect nest material, one of the benefits of the 10,000 sheep on the range. You just have to hang on to it. On a different scale altogether, ravens build enormous nests perched on ledges high above the sea. These huge, highly intelligent birds, with their large bills, are unmistakable as they fly majestically along the coast. They also pair for life, and this nest site has been used by ravens for many years. Meanwhile, on Stack Rocks, the guillemots and razorbills finally return for the season, and there's not an inch to spare. But it's not the 200-foot drop they need to worry about. It's their next-door neighbour, the apex hunter, the peregrine falcon, sitting perfectly positioned overlooking the colony. Dinner on the doorstep. As spring progresses, one by one, plants dormant over winter emerge from the short, sheep-grazed land. Spring squill and greenwind orchids start the ever-changing palette of colour along this coast. Inland from the sea cliffs, wind-stunted hawthorn, blackthorn and western gorse also add to the show. All this colour is not just for us to marvel at, but it's a valuable food source for insects, who in return help pollinate the plants. One very special and rare insect has made its home here, the marsh fritillary butterfly. In April, the little black caterpillars emerge from their winter webs. Their spiky defence help ward off birds such as chough, who hunt for food in the short vegetation. Soon, these critically endangered caterpillars pupate and emerge as adults in the sheltered valleys in early summer. With all this activity going on, it's also time to paint the red restriction marker pots. When the military are not firing, the sea cliffs are popular with climbers, as well as the cliff-nesting birds.
These red marker pots mark the location of nest sites on the cliff and inform climbers areas to avoid while the birds raise their chicks. These season restrictions help us to protect our chough population and the thousands of seabirds such as guillemots and razorbills that flourish on the cliff ledges free from disturbance. Once the chicks have fledged, the cliffs are opened up for the climbers to enjoy once more. My role involves working with the military, Defence Infrastructure Organisation, Natural Resources Wales and recreational organisations in order to protect this rich and valuable resource within the Pembrokeshire Coast National Park. It's about balancing the needs of the wildlife with the activity of the military and the enjoyment of the locals and visitors.
As the weather settles down and early summer sets in, the frenetic activity along the coast finally calms down as eggs are laid and nests are occupied. But not for long. One by one, chicks of all shapes and sizes begin to hatch out. Now the activity starts all over again, but this time it's a race to feed the ravenous chicks. The earliest chicks to emerge are the ravens. Within weeks, they are fully feathered. One of the advantages of their early start to life is so the adults can steal other birds' eggs. Nearby on cliff ledges, guillemot and razorbill eggs provide easy pickings for the clever ravens. Adult chough relentlessly dig for grubs in the short turf to feed the demanding chicks in the cliff face. With up to 4 hungry chicks in the nest, it's a busy time keeping them fed. Unusually this year, the peregrine has only reared 1 chick. As a single chick, it's spoilt rotten. Within weeks, it has left the nest. On the sheer walls of Stack Rocks, guillemot chicks hide behind their parents, not only from the sheer drop, but from the marauding black-backed gulls, always after an easy meal. It's not long before the chicks take to the skies. The ravens have outgrown their nest, and with a bit of encouragement, they are ready to take their first flight. Young choughs can be heard squawking away on the cliffs and practicing short flights, constantly demanding food from their parents. By the end of July, Stack Rocks is empty. The guillemots and razorbills have all but left, spending most of their time out at sea towards Portugal They only spend a few short months here on the sea cliffs. At night, the tank range wakes up to another sort of activity. It's also used for practicing nighttime firing. Despite the noise and bright parachute flares, it's just another normal night for the nocturnal creatures on the range. Pembrokeshire has always been a stronghold for otters, and here they not only use the lakes for feeding, but they are regulars all along the coast and use the stream and lake to wash off the salt water from their fur. The derelict farmsteads, once bustling with activity and highly productive, are now preserved as important relicts of the past. Abandoned in 1939, the farmers who once lived here have been replaced by abundantly rich wildlife. Barn owls inhabit the old buildings, and the surrounding meadows provide ample food for their hungry offspring. Meanwhile, bats flit around, feeding on nighttime flying insects. Undisturbed by the presence of the tanks, foxes roam freely, while badgers rummage for grubs in the soil. Wind falls from the orchard, and an impressive overgrown fig tree at Brownslade provide welcome treats come late summer. One of the old buildings, the mill at Frainslake, is also still intact. It overlooks one of several lakes and ponds found on the range. The warm weather triggers the emergence of dragonflies and damselflies. These spectacular insects come in all shapes, colours and sizes. Over 10 different species have been recorded here. The adults spend their short life on the wing, frantically feeding, mating, and laying eggs, ready for the next generation. By the middle of summer, the sheep and lambs have long returned to the hills, and the landscape continues to change colour. By grazing the land carefully, the meadows inland are now at their very best, carpeted in colour. While skylarks chatter high above, the music of insects whirring, chirping and buzzing fills the senses. Butterflies and bees frantically fly from flower to flower, following the perfume, searching for the sweetest nectar. One particular insect is a bit of a rarity, the shrill carder bee, now found only in a few locations in the UK. Partly due to the presence of the tank range, this has remained an important site for this species. This remote corner of the range feels like an idyllic, desolate tropical beach, with its golden strand backed by sand dunes. These dunes were once constantly on the move as the wind carved them into new shapes. Now the dunes resemble a rich, undulating wildflower meadow. However, in some areas, the army are encouraged to dig the sand for their sandbags. By breaking open the thin soil to get to the sand, it encourages the dunes to become mobile again, which in turn benefits rare plants such as Petalwort. Without the management of the grazing, the commitment of the military, and careful wildlife monitoring, we would not have the special landscape we see today.
Well, I've been involved with the Casamarte Peninsula since 1984, and the military have been here since 1939, and it's a very, very important area for training purposes. And you might think, military and conservation may not go together, but in actual fact, this place is absolutely wonderful for wildlife. It's basically not had any agricultural improvements, no pesticides, etc. in that period. And because of the way the military is used the area for training purposes, it creates wonderful opportunities for wildlife too. For example, because they fire mortars occasionally and various other things that create scrapes, which are good for invertebrates, as well as for colonising plants like mosses and the rare petalwort, which is a very rare liverwort. And it's not to say that the place is not grazed because it's a military range. Large numbers of sheep come down from the Preseli Hills, and they're here mostly in the winter and the spring in good numbers. And there are cattle also grazing parts of the range, in some places all year round. And that has great benefits for wildlife too. The vegetation is kept very short, which suits the chough, able to feed in large numbers of grubs. And the chough is a very important species here at Castlemartin. And also, it helps other things like small plants to get going. And in the summer months when there's less grazing, the plants actually flourish, producing lots and lots of flowers and nectar, which is great for bees and butterflies. And it's fair to say that the Castlemartin range really does support wildlife, and nature thrives here.
As summer comes to an end, the purple and yellow tones of heather and western gorse blanket the landscape. Cushions of rare Goldilocks aster colour the cliff edges. Many insects are on borrowed time and make the most of autumn to ensure their life cycle continues. Most butterflies take a full year to complete this wheel of life. As the temperature falls, marsh fritillary caterpillars, hatched from eggs during the summer, hunker down in snug webs deep within tufts of grass. Here, they are able to survive the harsh winter. Other butterflies, such as the comma and small tortoiseshell, hibernate as adults and are forced to find safe places to shelter in the old farm buildings. Late emerging dragonflies take advantage of the few remaining warm days. Some look in more worse for wear than others. This is also the time of year that strange haunting sounds can be heard far below from small coves that indent the sea cliffs. It's the calling of seal pups and their mothers. Every autumn, Atlantic grey seals haul up in the sheltered rocky inlets and give birth to their pups. Born with white fur, they can easily be mistaken for boulders until they move. The ocean here provides an abundance of food for the adults, and the pups grow rapidly on their mother's rich milk. After only 3 or 4 weeks, they are left to fend for themselves. Low pressure is building in the Atlantic. It's a race against time for the pups to learn to swim before the first storms of winter arrive. This rugged coastline has seen it all before. Since the retreat of the last ice sheets, nature and people have recolonized this land, and over centuries, adapted to the cycles of the seasons and the traditions of agriculture. Now, as weather patterns are fast becoming unpredictable, we all face new challenges. We may lose species unable to adapt to the changing climate, but may also gain a few. One thing is certain at Castlemartin, and this is the partnership and commitment of the Army, the farming community, and the conservationists. Between them, we can be certain this historic and wildlife-rich coastal landscape remains one of the best protected examples in Britain.